Hello, good morning to all of you. I hope all of you are doing well. So in today's class, we are going to discuss about arrays within a class. So what we can have is we can have an array of element inside the class. Now, you see, this is a very simple program that tries to sort an array using bubble sort algorithm. So here what I've done is I've defined a macro size by defined a macro size which has a macro expansion 15. So wherever size will be encountered in the program, it will be replaced with 15. Now what I've done is I've declared a class dsort. Here I have an integer array that is placed in the private domain of the class, and I have three member functions: read, sort, and display, that is placed in the public domain of the class. All the function does not take any argument, neither it returns any value. Now let us define the function read. So whenever I'm defining the function outside the class, this is the syntax that you need to follow. So you need to provide the return type, you need to provide the class name, and then you need to provide the function name. So I'm entering the values into the array. So since arri is a private member of the class, what I cannot do is I cannot use dot operator in order to read values into the array. So member function, but member function can have an access to it. So because read is a member function of the class dsort, so dsort read can have an access to it. So I'm reading the content into the array using a loop. Likewise, I am defining the function display that belongs to dsort, and the return type of display is void. So what I can do is I can read values into the we can display the content of the array using this particular function, because this particular function is a member function of the class and it can have access to the private member. So here also I'm not using any dot operator. Now here you see this is a very simple implementation of bubble sort concept. So here I have a sort function that's a member function of class dsort. So I'm defining it. Since I'm defining it outside the class, I need to use the member access by scope resolution operator, as we have discussed in the previous class. So here I have two loops, the exterior loop and the interior loop. The exterior loop runs for the size, and the interior loop runs for comparing the values in the consecutive locations. So this is a very simple concept. I hope all of you know bubble sort algorithm. So bubble sort tries to compare two consecutive values and tries to swap it if the criteria is satisfied. So bubble sort algorithm can be used for sorting the data set either in ascending or descending order based on your requirement. So now what I've done is I've defined my main function. So here I have declared an object of type dsort. So using that particular object, I'm calling read, sort, and display, because read, sort, and display are the public members of the class. So I can use the dot operator in order to access them. So this is a very simple program that is capable of sorting the content of an array using bubble sort algorithm. So you can implement all the other algorithms that are there associated with the arrays using this particular concept. Now let us try to understand static data members and static member functions in a class. So there might be a question striking your mind whether you can have a static data member or whether you can have a static member function. Yes, we can have static data member as well as we can have static member function. So let us start with static data members. So a data member of a class can be qualified as static with the property of the static variables. So you must have come across static variables in C. So a variable or a data member of a class can be qualified as static, which if it has a property of the static variables. Now, one of the property of static variable is that it is initialized to 0 when the object is created. Okay. It is initialized to 0 when the object is created. Now the second important property of static variable is that only one copy of the static variable is created and it's used by the entire class or shared by all the objects. Okay, so this is very much important. So whenever you instantiate, whenever you try to instantiate a static variable, it will create only one copy, but it is shared by all the objects, right? Again, but simple variable is created for each and every object. So here static variable is created only once for the entire class and shared by all the objects. Now it is visible only within the class with lifetime as the entire program. Now this is a very important property. So it's visible only within the class. So static variable is initialized with 0 whenever it's created. Only one copy of the static variable is created and shared by all the objects, and it's visible only within the class with the lifetime as the program. Now just see here what I have is where I have a static variable, that is count. Okay, count is a static variable here of type integer, right? So now here what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to simply invoke the function get data that will read value into the attribute num of every object that is created, and every time count is incremented. So here if count would not have been placed as static, then for every if count node would not have been placed as static, then for every object count would have been created and count would have been incremented to 1 every time get data is being invoked, right, or get data is being accessed. So if the count would not have been placed static, again I'll repeat it, so for every object count will be created and count will be incremented to 1, right? And since there is no default value to count, okay, it may so happen that depending upon whether you have a local or global declaration, it may be garbage value or one. So here, just for your understanding, if the count is not declared as static here, then every time a object is instantiated, a count will be instantiated for the particular object. That means you will have, so if 3 objects are created, then you'll have 3 versions of count and 3 versions of num. But here, since count is placed as static, what we'll have is we'll have only one version of count that will be shared by all the other objects. So we'll have 3 instances of num, okay, but what we'll have only one instance of count, right? So static int count. So here, since it's a static variable, by default it is initialized to 0. Only one copy is created and shared by all the objects, and it's only visible within the class. So here, once it is created, it will keep on updating the same static variable. So here, if I create 3 number of objects, so count will be incremented to 3. Okay, so here, what I'm doing is I'm having a function get count that will print the value of the count, right? So here just see, I have ABC, 3 objects. I have get data, and get data. So whenever these 3 member functions are accessed using the objects, so because get data is in the public domain of the class, what it will do, it will create 3 instances of number for A, B, and C. But since count is static, it will create only one instance, and then it will keep on updating the same instance. So initially count will be 0. First A dot get data will increment the count to 1. Then A B dot get data will increment the count to 2. C dot get data will increment the count to 3. So here, if I get count, so here what I'll have is I'll have the value of count being printed. So it will print 3, 3, and 3. Right, because the same value is getting updated every time whenever the static variable is whenever the get data function is being accessed, right? So this is the property of the static variable. So what you can do is you can remove the static and execute the same program and see the way how it executes. So this is the property of static variable. So static variable, once it's created, it's initialized to 0. Once it's created, it can be created only once and can be accessed by all the objects, and it's visible throughout the visible within the class, and its lifetime is within the entire program. Now let us discuss static member function. Now member function can be qualified as static if it has the following characteristics. So a static member function can have access to only static member. So this is very true. A static member function can have access to only static member, and a static member function can be called using the class name instead of the object. So this is one of the way of referring to the static member function. So a static member function can be accessed can access only the static member, and it can be accessed using the class name. So you need to provide the class name, you need to provide the scope resolution operator, and you need to provide the function name. So here just see the same program has been modified. So since I'm making a member function static, so it can access only the static member. So here count is static member. So the get count function here, now what I'll do is I'll make it a static get count, right? Okay, static void get count, because it can static member function can access only static data member. So it's the same program. Now just see here, what I have is I have A and B and C, three objects being created. So A dot get data, B dot get data, and C dot get data. So since it is incrementing a static member, so only since there is a static member count, so only one instance of a static member will be created, and same will be incremented. So it will be incremented three times. Okay, right? Same as that of the previous program. So here, instead of writing a dot and get, so you can write a dot get count, b dot get count, c dot get count as well. But here I'm using the class name. So I am using the class name in order to access the static member function. So this is what you can do. So you can do it in this manner, or you can use the dot operator as well, right? So now let us discuss about another important concept that's called as array of objects. So as in case of structures, we can have an array of structure variables. So now here what I can have is I can have array of objects as well, similar to that of array of structure variables. So now here I've written a very simple program that will read data pertaining to a student and display the content of the array. So here you see I have defined a macro. And I have defined a macro size which has macro expansion 10, right? So wherever size will be encountered, it will be replaced by 10. So inside, so I have a class student. So inside the class student, I have private members, name and roll number, and I have public members, get data and put data. So I am defining the get data function outside the class, and I'm defining the put data function outside the class. So here this is the way how we define it. So we already know about it. So I will not be elaborating further on this. Now in the main function, what I have is I have an array of object being created. So here I have created an array by the name class CL of size 10. So you can use size Z there. So you can use macro size, or you can use a numeric value size as well. So here I've declared an array of objects. So here the size of the array is 10. So I've used a loop in order to read data. So this is the way how you need to call the member function. So CLI. So here it will refer to a particular object belonging to an array, right? So get data, likewise put data. So this is a very simple program that is capable of reading data into an array of objects. So in today's class, what we have learned about is we have learned about arrays within a class, right? The way how we can use arrays within a class, we have tried to understand it with the help of a very simple example of sorting algorithm, and then we have discussed about static data members and static member functions. We have learned about the properties of static data members and static member functions, and then we have tried to understand it with the help of examples, and then we have discussed array of objects. We have learned about how to create an array of object and how to access it, and how to manipulate data. So we have tried to understand it with the help of an example. So this is the end of the class. So thank you very much. Have a good day.